I've always been a fan of the mission trips for young people, or even just those type of service projects for young people, because in those moments, in those experiences, they end up having a lot of fun, and they find a lot of joy, and in that we get to teach and share. See, isn't it joyful to be a child of God? And isn't it joyful and fulfilling to live a life in service to Jesus? And of course, the response will be, oh yeah, this was great. And then you come home, and you get to use that as a springboard to say, okay, now you've experienced what it's like to live in the joy of being a servant for Jesus. Now do that at home. Now, it'll translate for a week or 2 or 3 maybe, or maybe just a day, but at least for a moment, they've experienced it and they know what it feels like, and so they know how they can replicate that sense of joy and that sense of service that Christ has called us to. Excuse me. Just as a trip like this, a mission trip or a service project like these kids are going to be on this week, does that for teenagers, it's a little harder to take a church body, a full congregation of people to a place like Impact or to another church or on a mission trip, on even a foreign campaign, because we have jobs and we have families that we need to support, and we have all these obligations outside of that one thing that keeps us from all being able to do it, right? Well, we have opportunities as a church. We create opportunities as a church body, as a congregation, for us to experience those things too. And Summer Thing was one of those things. Summer Thing was one of those opportunities where we as a church got together and we used our gifts and our talents together collectively in order to fulfill our purpose in the kingdom. And while the goal of Summer Thing is to provide a place for our community children to come and experience Jesus and be taught, I believe it's more about this body learning to work together and us executing as a unified body of believers in order to experience, like we said with the kids, in order to experience what it means or what it feels like to be united together in Christ, fulfilling the purpose for which He called us. Before we get any more into the lesson, I want to share with you, you've seen some pictures, I want to share with you a little bit more from the week. So any of our students, all the way up through high school if you're here, that were here with us during Summer Thing, if you'll come up front and help me with the 10 Commandments and the rules. Not necessarily in that order. Don't be shy, you know them. You won't be alone, so come on. Don't make me call you out by name. Come on. If you were here, you learned them. Let's teach our brothers and sisters, our moms and dads, the 10 Commandments. But first, let's teach them the rules. These rules you can apply in your places of work, okay? They're important for you to follow them. You may have to translate a couple of things, like teacher to boss or something like that, but you may have to translate a couple of things into your world. But these rules do apply to you, all right? Are y'all ready? You're covering up the 10 Commandments. We're not going to do those yet, so that's okay. You can cover those up. Okay, we're going to do the rules. Ready? Honor God. Follow directions. Be a friend. Participate. Respect your teacher. Respect your teacher. Stick with your buddy. Don't touch your name tag. And the most important one, don't eat your name tag. Okay? Those work in your places of work. You've got name tags, right? Don't eat your name tag. Your boss doesn't want you eating your name tag, right? But those were rules that we taught the kids that helped them through the day to be good students and actually to be good children in God's kingdom. But above these rules, we place God's rules, the Ten Commandments. And I should tell you that these two things are not something we dreamed up. We've borrowed them from Impact. Impact has been teaching this to their children for years. This is staple things that they do every summer, and their kids know them, and it is just written on their hearts, okay? And so, but it was a really neat thing, especially my favorite moment of the whole week last week was at the end when the sparrows were up here doing for me the Ten Commandments that they had learned that week. It was phenomenal, but that was just a highlight for me. All right, so here we go. 10 Commandments. If you don't want to learn these because you think they're childish, take this up with God, because this isn't childish. It may be presented in a childish fashion, but these are rules to live by that God has given you and me. All right? Let's see. I won't get it right. One God. No idols. Respect God's name. Remember the worship day. Obey your mom and dad.
Obey your mom and dad.
No killing.
No killing.
Stick with the one you're married to.
Stick with the one you're married to.
No stealing. Thank you. And don't want no lying. Sorry, I skipped one. No lying. And don't want other people's things. All right? So it's childish, yes, but it's the Ten Commandments put into kid form and in a great way for us to remember. I wasn't sure if they could remember, but each one of those is done with, number 1, number 2, number 3. It's done with the appropriate number of on your hand signal, I guess, and it helps them remember and helps you remember what number commandment it is. So in case you're doing a Bible bowl and you need to know that. But it also, in a way that they'll remember it. Lots of fun. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your help. Guys and girls, appreciate your help. So, Summer Thing. Summer Thing didn't happen without a lot of people helping. It would be easy for us to attribute Summer Thing to one individual person and to say to Tricia what a great job you did and how great Summer Thing was. But she, as well as I and the rest of us, have purpose to say, you know what, Summer Thing isn't about one person. If it's about only one person, then that person is God. It's about God. But as for Summer Thing and making it happen, it doesn't happen without a whole lot of help. And it doesn't happen without everybody contributing to the process or to the goal. Everybody using the gifts and talents, if you will, that they have, that have been given to them by God, to contribute to the whole. For instance, it started long before we brought children to sit down into this room. It started with people that were willing to put together the mere idea of putting together a vacation Bible school, or what we call Summer Thing. And that started a long time ago, not this past summer, right? It started with people that had a vision and had a desire to see children come to know Jesus. And I would tell you, they may not have known it, but it started also with a desire to see the church work as one, the way God designed it to be. And so this vision is cast and it's put together, and it doesn't happen then until somebody is willing to take that vision and become the one who says, I will be responsible for making sure that it gets done. This year, that person was Tricia. She's the one that said, I am willing to make sure we get all the bases covered. And what a phenomenal job she did. Registration then ensues, and we have to find people that are willing to bring in all of those registration forms and put the data in and comb through it and make sure we catch all the ones that have allergies or can't swim or need special attention. Because if we overlook those things, Summer Thing has issue, doesn't it? If we overlook something that a child has peanut allergy and we feed them peanut butter, what's the problem? A big problem, right? And Summer Thing has this big bruise. And so registration, the people that work behind the scenes in registration, getting things ready and getting the forms distributed, forms back in and processed, and then promotion. It requires people to say, hey, we're doing this thing, and making it aware, making the community aware of the opportunities that are before them. Teachers. You got to have teachers. What's summer thing without teachers, right? You got to have those that are willing to give of their talents to teach, but you only have so many slots. So the line got pretty long, right? And you didn't get to teach because you wanted to, but we already had that spot filled. So maybe we didn't have that problem, but we didn't have a problem finding teachers, did we? We had teachers that were willing to help. We had helpers, people that said, maybe I can't teach, but I can be there to help, or I can assist with discipline, or I can just be present and be a friend. Or we had others who were ready to just go at the drop of a hat to run any errand that needed to be run. We had people praying. Not just that prayed weeks before and days before, but people that committed to pray each day. And because of those prayers, success was found. God's presence was real and felt. And the devil could not come because God was present. We had people that were willing to stand in front and lead songs, and it wasn't just me, it was children and youth. They were willing to set their own opinions of themselves aside and look foolish maybe at times as we sing silly songs and play and bring laughter into the voices of the children. We had those who took care of us and fed us while we were here working, that made sure that we were that our needs were met and that we were taken care of while we were doing God's work. We had those that helped with the setup. Last week you began to see a good portion of the stage already decorated. We had those that came in ahead of time and spent time, countless hours in their classrooms, decorating, or here on the stage decorating, or getting things ready for the swimming pools or other places. We had tons of work and energy that went into the setup and the preparation for Summer Thing. Cleanup. We had people that were willing to come to help clean up the mess that we had made. We'll probably still be putting stuff back for weeks to come as we clean up and get put up from Summer Thing. We had drivers, people that were willing to take students from this building over to the pool so that they could swim and have a good time and then drive them back, all in care and love for those children. We had people that were willing to sit at the pools and watch and just be present with the children so that they were safe and that they knew that they had someone there that cared about them. We had dreamers that were constantly spending time going, how can we do this better? Not that it's bad, but how can we do it better? What can we do that will influence the lives of these kids for the good? How can we really become significant influences in their lives, and maybe more importantly in their homes with all of their family? We had those who came to be what I might call greeters, who were just present. And they visited with the kids and talked with them and made them feel loved and special because they are. Summer Thing is an opportunity where we get to see each one of us, the church, using their gifts to accomplish the purpose of making Jesus known to the community. And church, I prescribe to you this morning that Summer Thing, in events like Summer Thing, is a lot like what Paul is writing about in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. It's things like Summer Thing and Back to School Bash and gospel meetings and I don't know, whatever else we come up with that we do as church life that provide us, the church, opportunity to experience what it means to be the church, working together for the common purpose, so that when we read what we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, we understand what it means to be the church every day in the lost and broken world. If you've got your Bible, turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, beginning in verse 7. Actually, verse 4. There are different gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but the same God works in all of them. Now, to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. Did you hear why it's given? For the common good. You see, it's really easy in our lives, as we talked about in Bible class this morning, because of our desire for successful living. It's very easy for us to receive the gifts that God has given us, the talents and the abilities that He's given us, and to take those gifts and use them for our good. But things like Summer Thing remind us that God gave us gifts not for our good, but for what? As Paul said in Corinthians 12, the common good. That means the gifts that God has given me to preach and to teach are not for my good, but for your good. I hope. For the kingdom good. The gifts that He has given you, be it prayer or be it the ability to encourage or to love or to serve, whatever the gift is, whatever the passion is that He's given you, it's not for your purpose. It's for the common good. It is for the purpose of the kingdom, the purpose of the church. And Summer Thing and things like that give us that reminder what it means to use my passions and my gifts and my abilities for the common good. To one, there is given through the Spirit the message of wisdom, to another the message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by that one Spirit, to another miraculous powers, to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between the spirits, to another speaking in different kinds of tongues, and still to another interpretations of tongues. All of these are the work of one and the same Spirit, and He gives them to each one just as He determines. Now, I know that the list of gifts in there that we're not familiar with. Well, we're familiar with them and how they work through the Scripture, but we're not familiar maybe with them in today's day and time. But the principle is the same today as it was then. The gifts that we have, the abilities that God has given each one of us are for the common good and they're given to us by the same Spirit for the same purpose. He's about to talk about that purpose. But it's the unity of the kingdom. And it's for bringing the kingdom works to the forefront of the lost and broken world. The body is a unit. Though it is made up of many parts, and though all its parts are many, they form one body. And so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, slave or free, and we were all given one Spirit to drink. So he's going to go here through the rest of the book of Corinthians, and he's going to, can we get this one on? There's not a power button. All right. He's going to go now through this rest of Corinthians 12, talking about this idea of the body and how the parts of this body, the body that we live in, this fleshly thing, don't get to exclude one from the other. And it's this kind of silly idea that he presents here in Corinthians 12 that says, if we were all just one eye, would the body work? Well, no, all we would do is see. We wouldn't hear, we wouldn't taste, right? And he presents this idea of how the body made up of many parts, works together for one purpose. And he says, so it is with the church. We are many parts. We all have a different function. Some might like to claim that their parts are more valuable than the others, that their role in the kingdom is more valuable than the others, but God would quickly remind us that humility is to rule our lives, and that there is no one role that is greater than another. To be honest, that's one of the things that attracted me to this congregation. As I sat with your eldership and they said, well, we may be elders, but we're just members with a special role. It doesn't make us better than the rest. That's just what God's called us to do. I'm a preacher. That doesn't make me any more special or any more important than the rest of the people that sit in these pews. That's just the role God has called me to play amongst the body. I'm just as important as those of you who chose to spend 3 days yesterday praying. Or not yesterday, but 3 days this week praying for Summerthing. Your role was just as valuable as the role that I play at this moment as I stand before you and speak. And just as valuable is the role that your shepherds play as they gather together and consider the needs of the body. Because we are one. And together, when we all function as we are called to, we fulfill the purpose. And that's what I love about things like Summerthing, is it helps us to put meat on the bones, so to speak, right? It helps us to understand what it means to work in unity together, to fulfill a common purpose. And while I hope and I pray that through our Summerthing we influence the lives of 30 or 40 children in their households, I pray more than that as a community of believers, we came to a little deeper understanding of what it means to function in unity together, fulfilling our purpose in the kingdom of heaven. If it were up to me, we would have a Summerthing every month. We would be tired. We would be worn out. We would know these rules backwards and forwards. But we would also have a deep understanding and passion for working together for the purpose of the advancement of the kingdom. And that's what Paul writes about in 1 Corinthians 12 and in Romans 12. And turn over to Ephesians chapter 4 as he's concluding what we call chapter 4. He's writing about this unity of the body one more time. Beginning in verse 11. It was he who gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, some to be pastors and teachers, to prepare God's people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then, when we've reached that maturity, how? Through unity, through all parts doing their job, through the building up of the body. We reach unity of the faith, attaining maturity to the measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of men and their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will in all things grow up into him who is the head, that is Christ. From him the whole body, that's us, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love. How? Or when? As each part does its work. Church, there's this beautiful picture that Paul uses here in Ephesians and even back more specifically or more detailed in 1 Corinthians 12 and Romans 12 of the working of the body. And he says that's who we are. When the body works, when all the parts of the body are functioning correctly, isn't it joyful living? But when our body starts to deteriorate and break down and doesn't work the way it's supposed to, isn't it hard to be joyful? That ought to get an amen out of this crowd, right? Because when my back is hurting, it's very hard to be joyful, isn't it? When we've spent 3 days ministering to kids at Summer Thing and our body is tired and our brain just wants to go to sleep, it's very hard to be joyful, isn't it? When we hit our thumb with the hammer and our thumb hurts, it's very hard to be joyful, isn't it? You see, when a part of the body is suffering, the whole body suffers. That's what Paul would write in 1 Corinthians 12. When one part rejoices, all parts rejoice. Summer Thing gave us an opportunity to see what it's like when the body works together. And the joy that is found when unity is in full swing. Other opportunities will be coming where we as a church, yes, get to reach out into our community and make known to them who we are. But don't forget that those are all opportunities for us to work together, each one using his gifts, which may not, as we learned this week, may not be present at the building doing physical work. It might be in the presence of your home offering prayer. Several of our shut-ins were called, and they joined that prayer chain. They couldn't come and help, but they did what they could by being in prayer in their homes. That's each one doing their work, right? That's what we're called to. To each one do what we've been given to do for the purpose of advancing the kingdom. And when the body works together, God is glorified. Return to John chapter 17, where Jesus prays that the believers would be one. Why? For the purpose of letting the world know that he came from God. That's what his prayer was. That's what unity in the body of believers does. Is it declares to the world that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, come to earth to die for us, that we could live. We could live with him eternally. May we always be a church, a body of believers, striving for unity by each one doing what God has given you to do. May we be a people who use our gifts in service to the kingdom and in unity with the body.